Here we are at Warchant.com. The transfer portal never sleeps. They're coming, they're going left and right. And Florida State got some news today that Treshaun Ward has entered the transfer portal according to On3. And I'm joined to discuss that by Warchant.com's managing editor, Ira Schoffel. And I think when you looked at all those running backs, Ira, I think when Ward on there, they had with Keziah Holmes and Sam Singleton coming in, you would have had six scholarship running backs and a very good walk on there as well with CJ Campbell. So something had to give. And I think a lot, especially after that great performance he had in the Cheez-It Bowl against Oklahoma, I think a lot of people are kind of hoping Treshaun Ward would come back. But I think once we knew Benson was staying, something had to give here. And Treshaun Ward decided that it was too crowded for him.
Yeah, before the bowl game, we were starting to hear talk that Treshaun was going to enter the transfer portal at the end of the season, and it's understandable. He came into the season as the number one running back, but then Trey Benson kind of came out of nowhere. Trey Benson, when Florida State signed him as a transfer out of Oregon, he had 6 carries at Oregon, so nobody knew he was going to be what he became. But then the season happened, and then Treshaun got hurt midway through the year, missed 3 games. And that kind of opened up the door for Trey Benson to just take off. And then when Treshaun came back, you could kind of tell that Trey was now the featured back. And Treshaun got carries too. It was a little bit of a diminished role. But then, like you said, I kind of wondered, and I wrote about it in my 3-2-1 column yesterday, that, I wondered how that would shake out because, Treshaun was huge in that bowl game and Trey Benson didn't have his best game. And so, Treshaun had a great game, and in the post-game press conference, he talked about, where the program is and where it's going, and I kind of wondered if maybe that would make him reconsider. But here we are. He's announced, or he hasn't announced it yet, but he entered the transfer portal, and he'll be looking for a new school.
And those stats been pretty impressive. He didn't have a ton of obviously carries, but it's running back by committee for Mike Norvell. But still, when you're averaging 6.4, 6.6 yards per carry, that's doing some things. That's really impressive by him, and I think he will be in high regard. And he'll probably go to some school where he can be the bell cow, where he was not able to do that at Florida State. So I guess now you got to look at the depth chart. Obviously, Benson comes back, and just going back, what we've seen from Mike Norvell and what he did at Memphis, you're really not going to get that bell cow guy, I don't think, consistently that's going to get 20-plus carries a game. So, obviously, you've got Benson and Toafili, but obviously we've seen there's at least room for another running back to get in there. How do you think this thing's going to shake out going into next season?
A lot of us are big fans of Rodney Hill, and I think that's kind of part of the equation is that, Rodney Hill, I think, is pretty similar to Treshaun Ward. But the difference between the two is Rodney Hill's got higher top end speed. Treshaun's one of those backs that, kind of gets to top speed pretty quickly. He's shifty and he can get fast really quickly, but he didn't have the top end speed to break off the 60-yarder or 70-yarder, which is what Rodney Hill gives you. But, Trey Benson obviously is kind of the total package. He's the most NFL back. And then Toafili has kind of found that role for himself as a running back, but also a pretty good receiver out of the slot. Then what's going to be interesting is those other 2 guys that you mentioned. You bring in Sam Singleton, a 4-star back out of high school out of Jacksonville, who apparently has great top end speed, very fast running back. And then Keziah Holmes, who transferred in from Penn State during preseason camp. He had to sit out this year because he started the year at Penn State, but he's kind of built a little bit more like Trey Benson, just kind of a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, more physical, but an all-around back. So I think, to me, you kind of have 2 of each. You have the 2 kind of speed guys with Rodney Hill and Sam Singleton. You've got 2 bigger guys, Trey Benson and Keziah Holmes, and then Lawrence Toafili is kind of that guy that maybe is used a lot as a wide receiver. So I think it's a great room. And then CJ Campbell, the walk-on, who, I think a lot of people thought might get put on scholarship. He was so productive as a redshirt freshman this year, and they like him a lot. But, you've already got 5 scholarship tailbacks, so you'd assume CJ would stay as a walk-on.
Yeah, none of these guys are technically going to be a senior next season, but, we'll see. Obviously, we don't expect Trey Benson to come back. Lawrence Toafili has been at FSU for a while. He may head out. So, but it's a great problem, like you said, Ira. And I think one thing Mike Norvell has done well is to use his personnel in that running back and find roles for these guys. And there's always your inevitable, it's part of the game. There are going to be injuries. So guys are going to get banged up. So to have that depth, quality depth at that position is a big boon. for Florida State. But I think we both have covered Treshaun for several years to see his rise. I think everybody around Florida State wishes him nothing but luck. This definitely isn't a situation where I think there's any animosity or anything wrong here. I think, everybody understands Treshaun is in a crowded backfield, and he's going to have an opportunity somewhere else probably to be more featured.
Yeah, and it's kind of a tough situation because, he was such a kind of key figure to the turnaround of this program. He's one of the guys. He came in as a preferred walk on under Willie Taggart, but when Mike Norvell and his staff got here, they really were impressed by him. If we think back to, it was 3 years ago, they put him on scholarship and really believed in him and kind of helped him become what he became. And so from that standpoint, he's kind of a symbol of the turnaround. He's one of the guys that really bought in right away for Mike Norvell. Really positive attitude, hard worker, relentless effort and practice and games, real competitive kid. So he kind of represents what Florida State was trying to become under Mike Norvell, but I don't know that his top end is as high as maybe some of these other guys. I mean, Trey Benson is a legitimate NFL back. I don't know. We'll have to see if Treshaun can be that guy. He's going to have durability questions because of his size. He got the shoulder injury this past season. And so it's not a matter of toughness. It's just, what is your size? And at that level, you need to have great size and speed. But so, yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of people in the program who are sad about it. I'm sure a lot of fans are really sad about it because he was kind of a fan favorite with his story being a walk-on and everything else. But, I think you also look at Florida State and where they're going. And I think the ceiling in that room has gotten a lot higher. And Treshaun will find a place to play and play a lot. But I don't know that he would have been the feature. He wouldn't have been the featured guy at Florida State if he came back.
Yeah, so we're not done yet in the transfer portal for Florida State, and I think there's one big one left. Obviously, Ira will have whenever that news breaks one way or the other, and that's of course Jared Verse. Any indications, any inklings whatsoever what's happening with him yet?
I mean, nothing firm. Just it feels positive. Some of the whispers we're hearing are positive that that he understands that there's a great benefit that he could possibly an opportunity for him if he comes back to improve his stock even higher for the NFL. And also, he'd be a real marketable player in terms of college football. He'd be one of the top, defensive pass rushers in the country. So you would think there would be more opportunities. I know he signed an NIL deal late this season for a nice vehicle, nicer vehicle than certainly I drive, Gene. But he's doing he's going to do pretty well for himself if he stays in college football. Right now, if I had to put chips in, I'd say that he stays, but I don't think it's a done deal, and we may not know until maybe later this week.
Well, it makes sense. You lose one, you gain one. So, I mean, that would be, it just seems to make sense. That'd be a good way to finish out the portal, which still has a little bit, I guess, another 11 days for the window to be open for college football. And then that late window opens up after spring practice. So stay tuned to warchant.com, the latest in the portal and recruiting and all the news surrounding Florida State athletics. And of course, Warchant TV here. You want to hit that like button if you like this video and then subscribe. So stuff like this, you'll find out right away. And when you have live shows, you'll be tuned into those right away. So thank you so much, Ira. And I think we'll be back soon talking about more of this stuff.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gene.